Can I tell you something? The key to building your confidence as a yoga teacher is to stop being afraid of repeating yourself. Once you start to repeat your lesson plans with only minor variations class to class, that's when you really step into your full power as a yoga teacher. It's also how you can dial down the amount of demonstrating that you're doing in class and how you can instead put your eyes on your students so you can adapt to their needs moment to moment. I'm Sage Roundtree, and this is Yoga Teacher Confidential, Secrets of Becoming a Great Yoga Teacher. Here to tell us about the secret of leaning into repetition is my student Nyisha Rylander. Nyisha Rylander, I'm so happy to have you here on Yoga Teacher Confidential. Now, if people are not watching this as the video podcast, I think they need to come to YouTube and do watch it on YouTube or on Spotify video because your backdrop looks like it's AI, but it isn't. Why don't you tell us where you are and how you came to be there?
So hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Nyisha Rylander, and I live on the island of Kauai, Hawaii, which is also known as the Garden Island. So you can see the garden behind me. This is just my little backyard. The story of how I got here, I've been here since 2020, so I'll try to keep it brief because it's a long story, kind of, but it was a very interesting story. Kauai has this sort of legend that if the island loves you, she'll keep you. If she doesn't love you, she'll kind of kick you off the island. And it also works with trying to move here or come here. So sometimes people will be here for a few months or whatever. And we didn't know that coming in. My husband and I moved here. We had never been here before. We'd been to a couple of other islands. And we lived part-time in Costa Rica up until 2020. But because of all the stuff that happened, the country was closed down. We couldn't go. And both of our jobs changed dramatically overnight because of all the regulations in California. And I had a hair salon for 20 plus years, 27 years. And I was ready to retire. And when COVID happened, that we couldn't work in the state of California at all. And I'd always loved yoga, and all of my yoga teacher people that I loved, even from different places that I used to live, like Massachusetts, were doing these free online classes, which nobody really did at the time. So I'm going into how I got into teaching yoga and how I moved here at the same time, because it's a very woven story. Um, so I took my first online training in 2020. It was online. And it was actually a pretty good program. And I just chose it because of the fact that it was very comprehensive in a lot of ways. And it was not an easy one to do. And so that was my 200 hour. And I did that during the initial lockdowns. And then my husband and I decided to move here. And I didn't teach for actually a couple of years when I first moved here, partially because of the lockdowns here. It was very, very tight. We're a small island. We have 2 ICU beds on the entire island. That is it. So we really had to keep everything together. So when we first moved here, there was no tourists at all. And boy, how we got here. I mean, I'm kind of going back and forth because it's so interwoven, but basically we moved here because we couldn't go to Costa Rica, and we thought we'd stay here for 6 months, and we're here and it's 5 years later. So that's the short story. There's all these other little details, but so then we moved here, and the lockdown was here, and I had just given up my hair salon business that I've been doing since I was 17 years old. And that was the only job I'd ever had in my life. I got my license right out of high school, and I did go to college for a few years for business, and then I just went full force. So I was here, it was lockdown. The island has about 70,000 residents that live here and about 100,000 on any given day of tourists. So you can understand when we came here, having never been here, and then coming from Los Angeles, there was like nobody here and it was super quiet. We had to do 2 weeks in the house that we moved into, which we had obviously no furniture, we had nothing, and we couldn't leave the house for 2 weeks. So we arrived in the middle of the night, and we had to take an Uber, which was the first time we'd ever done anything because we were super, following all the rules in California. So it was just a lot. And we came here and we were just like so excited to get out after that 2 weeks. But after a while, so what happens, like, I'm retired at the time I was 42. And I was like, this is great. I'm on vacation, but that started to wear off. And then I had this yoga information, but it was older information now at this point because it's like, 2 years had passed. And, but it's a small island, very similar to like living in a small town. If anybody lives in a small town or grew up in a small town, I also did in Massachusetts, where I'm originally from. And so you can understand how a small town is. And sometimes opportunities come up in a small town that you wouldn't get in a city, for instance. So I would have never gotten the opportunity that I got if I was still in LA. But I was able to take over the yoga. It's a small yoga program at this local gym. So I'm the only person who teaches anything there. And so I do 2 days a week. And I went in for the interview. They didn't even have me try out or anything. They were just like, you're hired. And I had never taught a class in my life at this point, by the way, online or any other way. And I had no mentor. My only training was having done yoga since I was 19, but not constantly. Like I would have breaks and, kind of come and go because of my work life and everything. But so I just sort of had to wing it. And so I did. And I came into a group of, there's about 6 to 8 people that come every single class, and they were already coming for the previous teacher. So I was really lucky in that way. And I still teach now. It'll be 2 years in November. So that's when I've only been teaching for a year and a half now. So that's that part. And then we can get into the other stuff, but there's my kind of long-winded answer.
I love it. So what I know about you is that you have these unique platform and classroom situations. So one, you've got this small gym with a hardcore group of regulars, these 6 to 8 folks who come twice a week. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then you also teach at a resort, which is the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where you are preparing to teach a class to people you will probably only spend that 1 hour with. Is that right?
Exactly. And I started doing that about maybe 9 months to a year ago. I can't remember exactly. I started subbing. So now I have a couple days a week that I do always at certain hotels. So it's a local woman who does this program where she calls it Yoga on the Beach. And there's different times. And so I do a lot of subbing for her. I have a few regular ones, but people come and go on the island a lot, yoga teachers especially. We kind of, because we can. So I'm kind of her go-to person. So I end up doing that a lot. And it's a very different thing to teach to people like that. Sometimes I'll see the same person twice or a couple times, because if I'm subbing, every day, they'll come every day. One of them is at 7 a.m., one of them is at 8:30, and one's at 10:30. And sometimes I do all of them in a day. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, it's super different. A lot of them have never done yoga before. You'll have husbands who show up who just are there because they're like, oh, I'll come with you because you're going to come with me fishing later or something like that. So, and then sometimes I'll have children. So I have a and you have helped me with this a lot with your program, is kind of get your signature, all-star class.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of modify it a little bit depending on what I see in front of me or what I feel like doing that day. So, but yeah, it's a very, very different thing.
I love
And
it.
then I do online library, which again is another thing. So yeah, I kind of have all over the place.
And we'll get to online because, like I said, you have these 3 really uniquely different platforms. So comparing the gym class with regulars to the resort class, it's just so interesting. From being in my world, I say most teachers either underplan or overplan, and you have an opportunity to do either because you have both ends of the spectrum. So how do you approach planning your classes for your regulars at the gym versus operating on this kind of greatest hits recipe that you vary for the people in front of you at the resort or on the beach?
Okay, so the resort class, I had a friend of mine help me figure it out because I was like, I can't go and teach. And sometimes she'll let me know the night before. And I have other things going on too. I have other online businesses. So I can't just sit there and plan for every little thing. And because it's a different person every time, or even if you see them every day for a couple of days, they don't mind if it's kind of similar. So I came up with just a fun, well-rounded class that was very accessible.
Mhm.
And so I just, and because I'm kind of a newer teacher, especially when I first started, I had it all written in my phone in my notes app. and I had it really bold because I need glasses and I can't wear glasses when I'm teaching, obviously. So I was really bold, and I would just kind of look at it. And I started with just, just watching my phone, or I have notebooks too sometimes. So I would write it in there. And then after teaching it a couple times, I just don't need to look at it anymore.
Right.
So to me, as a new teacher, that was a huge milestone. And so teaching the same class basically constantly like that, which I didn't feel like I could do at the gym, even though now I actually do that now. But that's a different thing, because I at first thought, oh, I got to do it something completely different every time. But this gave me the opportunity not to do that. And I have found that it has made my memory for, class structure and everything so much better. I've learned more from, I think, that than anything else I've learned, is just that keeping that same class over and over again. And now I change it up. Now I don't have to look at my notes. So that's what I do for that. So it was just that one initial getting over trying to change everything and make it different every time. And just also realizing, and it's morphed over the months, because I see them, and I'm, when I'm not practicing with them as much as I used to, because I used to feel like I had to, because I couldn't remember what I was doing as I was. But now that I'm doing the same one every time, I can just kind of do it while walking around. And now I'm looking at them more, and I'm seeing, oh, you know what? They can't, this is not an easy move. Let's move it to this. So I've modified things, and I've come up with like my own version of sun salutations, all kinds of things from that. So it's just like, kind of responding to it. But just, I think my advice for anybody who would be maybe in that situation or who's newer is, really do take the advice of finding that one class, whatever it is. And it can be anything, whatever, as long as you like it and it's safely sequenced and you have it all down, because you're going to get better at those cues. You're going to find other things in there, and you'll just, it's one of those things that you learn so much more doing. So
Absolutely.
it was really helpful for me.
Yeah, what I
And
hear all the time is people think it needs to be different every time, and it doesn't. And I love how you have really gone all in on having this template that you can vary, but the repetition is really great for you and for the students. And the other thing I hear from teachers a lot is they feel like, A, they feel like it needs to be new and different every time, but B, they feel like they want to be demoing less and have eyes on their students more, but they feel stuck. And I love how you discovered that the repetition was the key to freeing up your energy to do less demo and more eyes on your students. And then that makes you more responsive. And as a consequence, the whole experience is better for everyone.
exactly. And that's the way my cueing started getting better. And I started becoming more, just involved and more, I feeling more like a teacher than an instructor, if you know what I mean.
That's
I
beautiful.
really not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was very resistant to the idea of that beforehand, because I had heard it from a lot of people, and I was like, I can't do that because I see the same people and blah, blah, blah. So it's changed a lot. So the classes at the gym, I do them differently because these people are practicing, every week. And so that's a whole different thing. But I don't change it up as much as I used to. And something else I got from your program is these little, I call them vignettes, but little, like, this is like my little chair vignette, and I have like 3 or 4 different ones, and I just call it chair 1, chair 2, and I know the flow. So when I'm making the class, I'm just like kind of taking this puzzle piece, putting it here, and then it comes together. And, it used to take me an entire day. I can put it together in 30 minutes to an hour and practice it enough. And because I have a set structure that I've gotten in my mind from the resort classes, kind of knowing like how I'm going to structure it, it's really easy to remember now. So I don't even have to look at my notes. And I was a person I had these little notebooks, and I have, 3 or 4 of them full, and I would print it and I'd like copy and paste because I have terrible handwriting. So it was so much time consuming for me. I mean, I was like pasting
Yep.
and now it's something I don't have to worry about so much, which is great.
I love it. I love a food metaphor, and it really is learning the recipe templates and then being able to vary the recipe for an omelet or, a pasta dish with olive oil and vegetables or whatever, whatever the template is. Once you learn that, you don't need to be eyes on the cookbook anymore, and you can start to even eyeball the ingredients, and you don't need to even measure at some point. You can just tell because you have enough experience with that recipe. I love the modularity, and I loved your analogy of like putting the puzzle pieces in place. And I love the word vignette. Yay, Nyisha.
Yeah. Or yeah. I don't know why. I just kind of, that's my little name, but I will say, I think to a person who's a new teacher, um, you can't, I don't know if you have to, but for me, I had to go through all of this sort of complicated process
Mhm.
first to get to the ease that I have now. And I'm barely in the ease, by the way. Like I just was talking to my husband last night and like I'm finally at this point where I'm feeling really like comfortable and I'm not struggling as much. And it's been, like I'm not even quite 2 years yet. But so I would say give yourself the grace of just understanding that you might go through a messy period of time and it's going to look different for everybody depending on whatever you're doing. But at some point, it's just you're going to have all these little clicks that are going to happen. And each click is going to be like, oh, and it's going to be like a little breath out of relief. And then it just keeps getting easier and you keep refining. And I would imagine that it's probably just going to keep going down that line. So I'm
Excellent. So at the other end of the spectrum, you've got these live in-person classes that rely a lot on repetition, but you also have an extensive online library. And I think part of why we all have it in our heads that every class ought to be new and different is because we did get exposed to online content so much during the lockdown phase of the pandemic, where it would be silly, you wouldn't record the same sequence over and over or sequence with minor variations over and over for an on-demand library of classes. So tell us a little bit about your library, how you devised it, how it's going, and how you think to sequence for that.
So where it is now and where I'm actually in the process of kind of moving it a little bit. But what I'm doing is so I do have a version or two of my resort yoga, as I call it, on there. Because it is always a little different and it's a little bit more relaxed yoga. So I kind of call it like, yoga one. I call it Sacred Souls. So it's Sacred Souls one. And then my Sacred Souls 2 is whatever I have going on. So I'll usually have a theme for about 2 weeks or so, maybe even longer, where it's like take a sequence and then I kind of change it a little bit. And so for now, I'm just doing the one master sequence, the first one that's going in the library. But I've decided that I'm probably going to take little, I might take one master sequence and record each different one of them so that it's like a little package. So that when people come in and they think, well, what am I going to work on this next month? I can say, well, here's this package, and I'll have each one will be its own little month of packages where I have a theme. So I'm probably going to be presenting it that way online eventually. But right now, I just picked the one. So I'm only adding one class, a week or every 2 weeks at this point.
That's good. That's a sustainable workflow too. It's easy to get in overwhelm mode with a huge amount of content. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes when you're generating video content, including like all the tech stuff, needing the storage space, and then also designing the class and doing your hair and getting on camera. It takes a whole lot of energy too. So it's a major project. How did you find your way to it? Like what was the initial vision and how did you learn to build the library?
I have a health coaching business. And so I started doing these classes for the people in my group. And so right now, that's what I'm using it for. Eventually, when I get kind of what I consider like a more extensive library, I'll be selling the membership. But right now, it's semi included in the group, the coaching that I do. So that's kind of just how it started. I was like, well, I might as well just throw this in there because they all were saying, "Oh, you teach yoga. I want to see what you do." And so I'll weave in intentions in them sometimes that we'll talk about health stuff. So I talk about that. So I kind of weave it all in. So that's kind of how it started. And then and I use a website called Offering Tree. And it's new and it was made for yoga studios, but it works really well, especially for somebody like me who I'm like kind of techie. Like I know how to use tech, but I'm not really deep into it. And I could figure it out and make this really nice website and it has all the information on there. And I can also house my courses on there for now. I think eventually I'll probably, grow out of the course part eventually, hopefully, if everything works out. But it's a really good start. And so for me, that's what I started doing. And it was the online thing. What I'm doing with that is I'm not pushing too much with it. I'm just letting it kind of develop as it goes. And once I kind of it's just almost an experiment right now, like see how this goes. And I'm kind of morphing it over time, but it's kind of rounding out as I figure it out. But yeah, that website, if you're new and you're looking to start a website, I really recommend it because I I think I bounced from like a couple different ones, and this one to me was just the easiest one to figure out.
Offering tree. And what a great place to send your resort guests if they love the class and are chatting with you after and want to stay connected.
Exactly.
Little way to take vacation with them. I mean, they must be really receptive, even if it's their first yoga class, to be doing yoga in such a gorgeous setting with such a skilled teacher.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I do teach with this type of background I have a lanai out there. And so I do kind of have that thing. And exactly one of the reasons I forgot about that, one of the reasons I started recording was actually because a lot of people would come up to me after class and say, like, do you have anything online? And I'm not an Instagram person or even much of a Facebook person outside of my groups. Like I have it, but I'm so bad at posting. But so now I send them to the website. So that's really nice. And then that way, yeah, they can kind of tap into the yoga, the Kauai energy, because they can see all the plans behind me and everything. So yeah, it's really fun.
Gorgeous.
I've heard about
Excellent. So you are a student in my Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing Mentorship membership. But because that's a mouthful, I just call it 3 M's, because it's delicious and it is kind of cooking themed. I already tried to squeeze a recipe and cooking metaphor in here. Will you share with our listeners a little bit about what your experience has been like in the program?
Yeah, it's been really helpful with me, all these little pieces of it. So sometimes I'll use I usually will use parts of your sequences that you share with us, and I'll take like little ideas or I kind of modify them to make my own. And I like that it's not a traditional type of class that you're teaching these things. They're very, I guess, more yoga for athletes type of vibe. And it's things I would never have thought of, and sequences that a lot of them you're not on the ground, because when I'm doing the resort yoga, we are on towels on the grass.
Mhm.
So I don't like, and the way that it is, I don't like having people on their hands and knees too much. It's just better to do. So I love the options that you have and the creativity of it. So it's been really helpful with that. And it's just really nice to have these little vignettes that I can put into my own library. And then I'm getting ideas from the other people that are in there. They're sharing things, the different just podcast resources. There's just a lot of resources in there. So I always kind of go in and check in. If I'm feeling a little uninspired, it's just a great place to go in and kind of see like, okay, what should my theme be today? Or, I need to do that balanced trio. I think you have one called Sugar Plum Fairy, which I love. I use that one a lot.
I
So I love that.
It's very much like looking in a cookbook when you're like, you could be a chef, but you're still like, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? And just
Yeah,
having a cookbook to get down off the shelf and flip through can usually remind you of things that you already knew that you wanted to do. You just had forgotten that you knew.
exactly. And it's nice because I think people can use it in a different way. I do use it that way. Sometimes you go in and you just want to create, use what's there. And then sometimes it's really great to have that inspiration, because yeah, you get it, you kind of just you get kind of stuck in your own head sometimes. And I also have to say for the gym classes, it's easy to kind of get stuck into like doing kind of the same things a lot, or you kind of forget themes and stuff. So it's really nice to go in and have not only your input but everybody else's input on their takes on things, and somebody else's take on a little vignette that you share or something. And then it's like, oh yeah. So it's nice to have sort of a meeting of the minds, so to speak. And I love that you can kind of go in and, there's the live component, but you can also, if you're somebody who just kind of likes to, lurk, so to speak, and I'm kind of more of a lurker in a lot of ways. So I just go in and, you don't have to really interact with anybody for real if you don't want to, but you can get all that information with just being passive, which is nice too.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that, because I think sometimes people see the live calls and maybe they live on an island out in the Pacific and the time isn't perfect for them. It's a time when they're teaching or they're in Europe and they teach in the evenings, but the live calls are all recorded. And you can get huge value out of the program, I think, without ever being on a call live at all. It's really a very full pantry inside of Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing, where people can come in and grab a few things, or they can get a prefab, like meal ready to eat almost experience, or they can really like start cooking from scratch if that's what the vibe is. I tried to make a track for minimalists and a track for maximalists as well.
Yeah, and I kind of swing between both of them because sometimes I'm just like gonna spend a couple hours in there, and then sometimes I'm like, let me just do a quick check-in and see what's going on. So I think and I think it would be really helpful. It's interesting the time that I came into it, because I was just I think on the cusp of being a totally beginner teacher and then now moving into like, I don't know, the sort of middle range of like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing now, teacher, and it's seen me through those two phases, and it's helpful for both parts, like both phases of where my brain was, that very beginning giving me the structure, and then now more giving me inspiration and, community. Because, I'm on an island literally, but sometimes it can feel, if as a yoga teacher, if you're not in the yoga world, say you're a part-time teacher or you have another job, or you're whatever, it's just you're not in the yoga world, you don't have somebody to talk to you about your sequences, you don't have a friend to bounce things off of. I'm that person, like literally and figuratively. So it's nice to have that in there too, just to have some discussion going on to keep your brain moving.
Absolutely. Yes. It can be isolating to be a yoga teacher if you are on an island or in a small town or not tapped into a bigger Sangha yoga community. And that's sad because our students can't give us the kind of feedback we can give each other. So we have to create a community online where we can workshop our recipes like a chef would. A diner isn't going to be able to give you the same feedback as another chef would.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's really valuable and helpful. And being somebody, like I said, where I took my first 200-hour, literally in the COVID bubble, and there was no actual contact with anybody. It was just recorded video. And so I've never had live instruction, even to this day. Everything I've done has been online.
Wow.
So, but the program feels a little bit more live because there is a live component, and it's dynamic, meaning you're always adding something. It's not just some steady thing that's just there. And I will say, when I email you, you get right back to me like right away. So it's really, I feel like it's a very interactive experience, and you can make it as interactive as you want it to be.
I'm so glad to have you in there. Now, I think if anybody's watching this video, they're going to want to come and take a class with you live on Kauai. But if they can't connect with you live on Kauai, how can they find you?
My website would be the easiest, because like I said, I'm not on Instagram a whole lot, and it's just Nyisha Yoga Kauai. And I can spell it out, or it can be probably in the show notes, but yeah, NyishaYogaKauai.com.
Great. Awesome. Nyisha, what a treat to talk to you. I think we've given folks a lot of food for thought. What would I do if I were teaching just these one-off classes? What would I do if I had a lot of regulars? What would I do if I were recording videos? Like 3 wonderful trains of thought for teachers at every level. And thank you especially for emphasizing the importance of repetition and building your confidence when you're in that like kind of wobbly-legged new teacher, like full phase. Like getting your legs underneath you is a consequence of not being afraid to repeat yourself. That's how you really grow.
Yeah, I agree. It's advice that you hear a lot, but you resist it. But when I finally did it, I was like, okay, this actually makes a lot of sense. It's a huge one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Nyisha and I would love to have you join us inside Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing, my mentorship membership program. Whether you are more of a lurker, as Nyisha purports to be, or want to engage fully on the live calls, there is lots there to help you level up your teaching, really step into your confidence, and not be afraid of repeating yourself, because you'll repeat with purpose, and then you'll learn ways to vary with intention. To learn more about click the link in the show notes or come to sageroundtree.com/mentorship. I'd also love to have you join the Zone. It's my free community for yoga teachers. We could consider it a JV version of the mentorship membership, as I am quite active and supportive in the free space as well. You can join that for free from the link in the show notes or come to comfortzoneyoga.com. I am Sage Roundtree. This is Yoga Teacher Confidential. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll see you next time.